Well, Runa Khan is the founder and executive director of Friendship in Bangladesh and the founder of Friendship International, as well as an Ashoka Fellow for her work as a social entrepreneur. Runa Khan, welcome to the Climate Pod.
I'm very pleased to be with you, Ty. Thank you.
Well, you've won many awards for social entrepreneurship. What has been the focus of your career as a social entrepreneur?
You know, it's always about people for me. Very honestly, it's always about what I see, what my heart tells me. And it has right from the beginning been about people. But at one stage, I realized that people means humanity itself. It also means the environment. So the areas that I really felt strongly about working in were areas which were like totally impacted by climate. I realized that today. In those days, I didn't realize that because it was 20 years ago. So it was really about all the areas where climate was, people were affected by climate. And because of that, they became poorer, they had to migrate, they lost lives, poverty struck them. And it was humanity first. For me, it was always about people. But I realized if I had to work with them, try to kind of understand their needs, try to fill in the gaps of their needs, I needed to work with environment. Nature was just too big, too overwhelming. I couldn't work against that. Like I couldn't build a road by trying to fix a river. That didn't work, So I needed to work with the environment, and I needed to work very deeply with humanity, human rights, human dignity. Because we talk about sustainability of things. How does sustainability happen if you cannot leave behind, when you have to move, leave behind self-respect and dignity? So the two threads that has always bound my work for humanity has been the environment and ensuring that I leave behind opportunity, dignity, and hope.
So what inspired you to launch Friendship back in 2002?
Well, it was actually, I didn't try to make an organization or anything like that. I didn't even know what an NGO was when I started. I just found this group of people in these shores or riverine islands of Bangladesh, whom we were in the same country, we were in the same environment, in a sense that all in Bangladesh. And they were so away, so far from what we were having, what we were taking for granted. And I just couldn't leave them behind, and I kept thinking that I have realized that I can do something about it. I know I can do something about it. Even that little drop I can do. And I think that realization that you can do something leads to a responsibility. And I think because I couldn't leave them behind, I started with whatever resources I had. And at that moment of time, I was very lucky because my ex-husband was French and he was a sailor, and he had sailed this river barge from France to Bangladesh. And I thought that the thing that for me was most important is to ensure that people did not suffer. When you die, you become a statistics and you're entered somewhere. But when you're suffering, you are not in the records. And people do not come to you, to ease suffering. And for me, that was primary. And I thought I would carry healthcare to them, because when suffering is there, there is no empowerment. You don't realize that you're hungry. You don't realize that you don't have hope. You want to ease that first. And for me, that was most important. And hence, it was a question of opportunities. I had the ship and I had to look for a sponsor, of course. And so I did that. And I think with the single-minded purpose that I needed to ensure that I could carry help to these people. So it was really that.
Well, what have been your main objectives with friendship over the last 19 years?
Yes, when we started, it was with, as I said, easing suffering. But I soon realized that it was not enough. It's very good. You cure a person, he goes out and he doesn't have food for 5 days. That didn't work. The storms come, their lands break, and they don't have food to eat. They don't have a house to live in. Then I realized that, if you need to survive on this planet, you need to have hope. You need to have opportunity. And for opportunity and hope, we started, literally, we started a whole, a whole integrated system of work. So what we did was we actually have four main targets, which is saving lives, which means health and relief work, etc., and trying to ensure that. It is about climate actions, because wherever we went, we needed to ensure that people were prepared for whatever struck them. Be it a cyclone, be it a flood, be it famine, be it land break, they needed to be prepared for it. And in preparation, they could save their lives. And of course, be with them for rebuilding, rehabilitation, etc. Then it's saving lives, climate action, and poverty alleviation. So hence we entered into agriculture, fishing, trying to ensure that there were micro social entrepreneurs, for example, through our parasolar technicians, our paralegal aides, our community medics. They could earn their own living. It was very important that they could leave this behind. And certainly, of course, it's all about empowerment, because at the end of the day, they have to know where to go when you leave them behind, because, you do kind of move on. You cannot presume to exist forever. And we need to ensure that they exist forever. And empowerment was very important. So we have projects where we link finally the people on the ground to the communities, to the government and to other organizations and to other communities, because these are all IDPs or climate migrants. 100% of Friendship's core work is with climate migrants, and we have to give them a package deal. The poor need everything. You cannot say, I will only give this or I'll only give that. It doesn't work. You have to ensure that they have access to everything, and they have to have access to, things of quality, because they cannot afford things which are bad. They need to have good, solid, they need to have a torchlight which works. They need to have food which is nutritious. They need to access healthcare which is curing them. And it's not about awareness, or it's not about just telling them things. It's ensuring that they actually get it.
Well, you'd mentioned earlier that you weren't really thinking about climate change in the beginning. Now it's one of your key focuses of Friendship. So what changed? I mean, how has climate change impacted Friendship's mission over the last 19 years?
It's very funny because, this is a question which I need to explain a bit on this. My mission has not changed. My mission has been, or the vision of Friendship always was to address unaddressed communities and bring to them opportunity, dignity, and hope. That has not changed. Incidentally, in trying to find communities which were left unaddressed, which were the poorest, were those who were impacted by climate. Now, that I did not realize. It is in reflection, I realized that all the communities that Friendship had chosen to work in were all those which are impacted by climate. So right from day one, 20 years ago, when climate was not the thing really, I mean, people didn't want to work or make pilots for climate projects, etc. We have been working and we have been replicating and we have been scaling and ensuring dependability of services for 20 years. And, like, for example, our healthcare system. We have a 3-tier healthcare system. So I started the first mobile ship hospitals in the country. So these are ships, which go from island to island, giving services to the people. Bangladesh is a country of 1,000 rivers. Three of the biggest rivers in the world are in Bangladesh: the Brahmaputra or Padda, Brahmaputra, which is called the Jamuna in Bangladesh, the Ganges, which is called the Padda, and the Meghna. It is so big that in summer, the city of Paris can be fitted inside one of the width of the river. And it's here, it's all built of silt, so the land keeps breaking and shifting. Also, the coastal belts, the islands, keep breaking and shifting, and people keep migrating. And this has accelerated over the 20 years that I've seen. They would move once every 5 years, 4 years. Now they're moving several times a year. I've seen people who have moved 48 times in their lifetimes. And hence, you see, working here, we needed to have a system of access to services which was all mobile. So we have mobile shipped hospitals. We have the second tier, which are community clinics. We have about 700 of those. And then we have community medic aides who are absolutely at the field level. So what they can't do, it goes up. We also have a modality of mHealth, which links the systems together. We have schools which can be dismantled and carried away, but they are taught the national curriculum. And of course, we lay a lot of emphasis on ensuring that we make good human beings. Academics is important, but having values, ensuring strengthening of their characters, these are things that we work on very deeply with the children. We have about 30,000 children now in our schools between the Rohingya camps and our chore areas. And we have adult education. We are also doing work with agriculture, indigenous things, indigenous practices, which we again bring to the fore. We try to also have, we have about like 85 paralegal aides who are linked with the government so that injustice can be dealt with and people know where they stand in the political ecosystem of the country. So it's really empowering them in that. And this somehow has created a synergy of work or synergy, the efforts have been synergetical, because I remember going to a community in an island, about 15, 16 years ago in 2004 or 2005, where 18 families had not eaten for 2 days. And from there today, they want a loan of 5,000 euro, So I think this change has truly been created, I would say to a large extent, with our intervention. Of course, it's them who have done it, but I think our intervention, because you hardly ever find another organization working in these areas.
Health has been such a huge focus for Friendship. How has the health of Bangladeshis been made worse by climate change?
Well, number one, we have to understand that Bangladesh is not a very rich country. Okay, we are striving to becoming a mid-income country by 2026. It has been postponed. And our income per healthcare is like 0.36 cents compared to that of Netherlands, for example, which is like 3,800 or something like that, 3,600 or 800 per capita. So you can understand that health is not something which is everyone can reach. With the climate, what has happened is if they could reach like 30% of the people could reach healthcare, now even less, because of the inaccessibility, damages to roads, damages to the clinics, damages where you cannot even do management of a system of healthcare. You cannot deal with emergencies in healthcare. All this. And if someone asks me about, what is it that we are striving for, it's not a question of money of loss and damage. We can always shout that we need more money and every compensations are needed. I mean, as you know, that this has been a very important topic. But deeply in my heart, it is not a question of the money. It's a question of being able to rebuild what has been lost and damaged due to the onset of the differences in the weather all the time. You had a road where you could take your child to school. That road is not there. How does your child access the schooling? And it's not easy because road damage means flood water comes in. The land is broken. Not access of road to a hospital means that you cannot carry a patient or a pregnant woman to that clinic any longer. You see, it's far beyond just money. So it's a rebuilding of a whole system which needs to be done. And I'm afraid that responsibilities are, responsibilities are on both sides. But we need to get help to rebuild to an acceptable level. Now, with that, be it money, with that, be it management, with that, be it whatever, we need help in ensuring that each life matters. And that is, for me, the most important. Each life matters, and each life has got, everyone is due to these basic services, which so many of us take for granted, even living in the cities.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think that is the crux of the loss, or that is the crux of the climate change. And sorry, there's one more thing I think I should say. It is also the incredible loss we've had in agriculture and salinity. Land in the southern part of the country has been, the embankments have been washed away. First of all, we didn't have very strong embankments. We had kind of reasonable embankments. But these reasonable embankments totally broken, and salinity. I have had farmers sitting, looking out into the fields and saying, you see there, I used to have a little farm. I used to have, I used to be able to grow my own crops. Now it's all salt and salt and salt. He's lost everything. I've seen women who have come in, it's our own clinics that our paramedic, she has had 2 miscarriages, and they couldn't understand why this apparently healthy woman was having miscarriages, And then we realized it was just, she'd never had fresh drinking water. There was no fresh drinking water available. So she was taking saline water. And then, we had to actually, forget about medicine, we actually had to ensure that, we have a lot of desalination water plants in the south of the country. So we were giving her free water from there so that she could she could have a healthy baby, which she did. Her 3rd child was healthy. So, it's just so beyond things which we are always talking about. It's that one little thing which we ignore or we don't see. And it makes up the magnitude of the problems.
Well, it's estimated that 1 in every 7 Bangladeshis will be displaced by climate change by 2050. What kind of impact does such displacement have on the Bangladeshi culture?
Well, let me tell you about the good part. Okay, the good part is, I think in the whole world, you'll find very few countries with people who are so courageous and so resilient. They have a storm on their head, they lose everything, they stand up and they smile. And I think it is because of this, I could never leave this country and go away. The innate strength and the dignity which these people have are amazing. And I hope that this is the strength which is going to give rise to their survival. And 1 in every 7, yes, because Bangladesh is a country which is 144,000 plus square kilometer, and we have about 170 million people today. 52% are already underwater. And where are these people going to go? It's only, if you take an average, it is only 5 meters above the sea level. There are a few hillocks. You just take away those hillocks. I don't even call them hills, because the highest one is like 3,000 feet, 1,000 meters. So it's like really low. And so the average 80%, 90% of the country is less than 5 meters. So they will all be displaced. And and unless we can imbue in them the ability to work and find strength and access. Access means to government services, to available services, to have the, to have the knowledge, to have training by which they can deal with it themselves, to find a trade. I really don't know if borders will be broken. And that is a fear, certainly.
Well, yeah, just yesterday, September 13th, the World Bank released a report estimating that 216 million people around the world will be displaced as a result of climate change. How can people and organizations and even countries help those being displaced?
I think it's not a question of blame. I think we have to get out of this blame thing. Okay. For me, there are two things. One is, well, there are three. Let's see. One is that it's a kind of a philosophical or a spiritual thing. We can plant as many trees as we want because we will keep cutting the trees and firefighting the situation unless human greed, wants, desires of having the 25th bag and 36th dress is not gone. So we really need to step back and try to control our greeds, because if we are wanting more and more and more, we will keep destroying the planet more and more and more. And there are people who will take full advantages. There are people, to organizations, to politics, to NGOs, to everybody. They will all take advantage of this because everybody wants to sell, everybody wants more. I think there is a deep issue of being able to control human desires and human needs and be satisfied with what you have. Localization of resources is also extremely important. If every day, throughout summer in a hot country like this, you want strawberries, it's very difficult to get them. It's all linked together. The second, I think, is we need to, of course, if you catch somebody's money and take it away, that hurts. And we need to catch somebody's money, take it away, and hurt them so that they understand that they can't keep continuing to do this. It's not a question of trying to pricking their conscience or this and that, because I think some people still have, some organizations, many, I would say most, have conscience. They have a conscience. Humanity has conscience. Humanity is good. Companies are good. They have conscience. The point is there are some who don't. And those who don't, I think they need to step back and see what they are doing. And it needs to be focused on, addressed. And it's not only because it has not been happening. If we say that only this generation is talking about climate change, that's not true. I am 60, okay, over 60 actually. And I tell you, even during my youth, there have been people like Al Gore and, even Prince Charles, who have been speaking about this climate issue. They have been vocal about this issue. But not much has happened. So we need a different way of dealing with this now, because it's really too late. And compensations, yes, they should be compensated, not because only that they have to give the money, but because that is where it's going to hurt. And maybe they will stop. And I think we need to also be prepared. We cannot trust that in 5 days' time, which is like 50 years' time or 20 years' time or 5 years' time, people we will have to do something about all this humanity who is being affected. We have to start preparing them today. So there are three things. You have the long-term vision of what needs to be done. I think human values needs to be thought about what is really valuable. We need to start asking for compensations, working with organizations which don't work properly, even people who don't work properly, leaving the lights on, leaving the fans on all the time. We have to be careful with them. We have to, nurture that so that it doesn't happen. And third, we have to also, be in the state where we have to deal with the people for today. And that's what we do. Friendship tries not only from mangrove replantation so that we protect the embankment. We are the largest private sector mangrove reforestation projects Friendship is doing in Bangladesh. That is important. They're trying to deal with those who are suffering from this climate impact, because each life lost is your own brother, your own sister, your own child, your own parents. If you think of it like that, then each life starts mattering. And in the global picture, you don't lose sight of that one individual, because I think that's where all the problem starts. You start taking everything globally, and that one gets forgotten. But that one can be your sister or your son.
We've already mentioned loss and damage a little bit, but in 2015, as part of the Paris Agreement, countries agreed to address loss and damage associated with the adverse effects of climate change. But do you believe that the world's wealthiest nations are living up to this agreement?
Do you? Do you think they're living up to this agreement?
No.
Why are we in the state then? Why are we in the state? Certainly not. Bangladesh is the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, the CVF. And, from early warnings to evacuation system for saving lives, climate resilient crops, food sources are needing to be protected. All these are happening. Then we have also, we have issues of loss and damage. After the withdrawal of the US, the money fell, the amount of loss and damage money that was supposed to have come in. Nobody's keeping to their commitments. COVID has not helped at all, and with coronavirus, there are more excuses. And but with these excuses, if only people would also step back and realize that because of this, we are all linked in this world together. We are all linked. One person can spread one virus, and everyone in the world is impacted. So when the climate change happens, everyone is impacted. You see, how is it that countries are not seeing? I mean, they are, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Things have to be done today, not tomorrow, because we don't have space for tomorrow anymore. There is no space, because you can be next. And certainly, I think I think Bangladesh, with all these, we have to do our part of ensuring that our demography doesn't rise. For example, for me, I don't know, somehow nobody addresses that, but for me, one of Bangladesh's important, I think, stands should be that we have to control population in this country, because how much mitigation can we do? We hardly contribute. It's less than 1% of contribution. It's less than 1%. It's 0.9 or 0.8% that Bangladesh is contributing per capita to the global, for the emission. So what mitigation can we do? And a country as poor as Bangladesh, but we have other responsibilities. We have to kind of maybe show a direction. And however, we cannot do anything if we are not strengthened. Individuals have to be strengthened. The country has to be strengthened. And this is the responsibility which was promised to us, which we are yet to see.
Well, what would you like to see accomplished in regards to funding for loss and damage at COP26?
Well, yeah. So at COP26, I would like to see that beyond money, we have a kind of a involvement of countries to ensure that each human being who is in Bangladesh can survive. It's a very simple statement. We all want to survive and lead a life of dignity and have hopes in our heart. So for this, what is needed? Money is one part of the issue. We need money, but we need the rebuilding of the roads. We need fixing of our embankments. We need ensure that our bridges are all done, our children can go to school, our hospitals are not lacking in doctors and in nurses. And all this, of course, comes with money, but it's beyond money. And it's a kind of a responsibility, because a lot of the things, Bangladesh was on the rise, it was doing very well in the context of the MDD, SDGs, etc., and the Millennium Goals and the SDG both. Till this last few years, the climate impact has been terrible in this country. And not only the climate impact, and now with COVID, it's gone down even more. And for me, I think that would be the most important. I want the world to have a sense of responsibility. That is what I want. I want the companies to have a sense of responsibility. And I want also that the people of Bangladesh understands where they are, that they are not in the best of position vis-a-vis this. And because of that, also strengthen themselves individually so that they can stand on their feet. So that is important.
You've attended COPs in the past, and you've seen some have been more or less successful than others. I mean, is there something about this upcoming COP that gives you hope that it will be successful in addressing some of those issues that you just talked about?
Let's hope that the COP kind of manages to bring people together, because I know that with COVID now it's so difficult, and I know that it's so difficult to have groups together, people together. But if you cannot touch another person, literally, see another person, you cannot transmit the pain that you're suffering. Or you cannot transmit to the person the needs that are really in the field. So I think it's important to have the COP in person and, of course, virtual both. It's also as important to ensure that it doesn't that all the protocols are in place and people follow those protocols, because we don't want deaths. You see, so of course there is this balance which needs to be kept. And if we can achieve that, I think there has been two steps in the last 4 or 5 years that has happened, 3-4 years that has happened. One is the climate change has started affecting and impacting areas which were not being impacted to this degree before. The fires, the losses, the cyclones, in the US, South America, Europe. Look at the floods in Europe. I mean, it was like Bangladesh. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, so people have understood that something is happening. And I think this reality, unless you're there, you don't understand. Like I say that, you think you hear about people who have not eaten for 2 days, but as soon as you see somebody who has not eaten for 2 days, it's a totally different ballgame. So it's like that. When you see the floods at your doorsteps, when you see the cyclones and you see the fires, it's at your doorstep. So you start understanding that. And second, I think, is COVID. I think if this doesn't make people understand the importance of unity, solidarity, working together, ensuring that each one in this planet has a link to the other, and you cannot let one go without ensuring, you cannot strengthen one and let one go. And I hope it is also those 0.1% who have all the money in the world. I hope they also understand, because I think that is where a lot of strength comes from, in terms of media, in terms of funds, in terms of setting the pathways, lobbying. That comes from there. It doesn't come from you and me, Kai. And those people need to understand, because if they are affected, impacted, perhaps a little change of heart, and with COVID, this has happened a bit. So I hope that this COP will make it more realistic, what they are trying to catch, what they are trying to get at. And it's not some story or it's some, conference, which is something that will happen and it's a good get together. I hope that never happens in this COP. I really have hopes this time.
Well, you've done so much to help people and to achieve social success in Bangladesh and around the world. What advice do you have to people just starting or maybe thinking about starting their own social enterprise?
Uh, so I was in Sri Lanka, I was in, where was it, Singapore. And I was speaking at a university. There were a lot of university students. And so one young man said, Mrs. Runa Khan, how do you start? Where do I get the money? You know, I said, well, first you need that vision. You need to know what you want, what you feel for, what it is that drives you to the extent that you can give your Saturdays and Sundays and stay awake till 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning to ensure it happens. That is what you have to see first. Unless you are passionate, unless you can give not 100%, because to make an organization which is really valuable, you need to give 120%. It's that 20% extra which actually makes the difference. 100%, many people can give. And I would tell them first to ensure that their vision is without an agenda. It's true. No agendas to it. They have a single goal and a single mission. Two, that because they themselves can give their own time, effort, energy unconditionally, and they can give their 100 plus 20%, if they can do these two, money somehow will come. There are enough good people in this world to believe when they see verity. And if there is verity in the work that we do, in the work that you want to do, you will get money and funding. So have that in your heart.
Well, clearly, the way that you've lived your life and you've run the Friendship Organization are examples of a very successful version of that. So I'm just so inspired by all of the work that you've done, all the good that you have brought to this world, and I really appreciate you being on the show. Where can our audience follow your work and the work of Friendship online?
Thank you, Tai. Tai, I want to add one more thing. You have said that I have done. Actually, I am just an instrument because I I have done, okay, I have led it, but I have 4,000 people in the organization. There are people who in this COVID time has taken the risk of ensuring that family planning tool reaches the community because they will not have it, or that food reaches them because they will not have it. Our doctors, our staff, many of our Friendship International, people who have gone pillar to post trying to ensure we have funding enough to continue the projects as they are. So I am only an instrument in it. It has been a whole team. I have really the best team in the world. I really do, dedicated, loyal, committed people. And I think it's because of that we could build this organization in the way that it has been built. And yes, we can follow. It is www.friendship.ngo. And I am Runa Khan. I am on Instagram, and you have Friendship on Instagram and on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. There are many Runa Khans, so you just have to remember my face a bit and ensure it's a social entrepreneur.
Well, we'll be sure to link to all of those in the show notes. Runa Khan, thank you so much for joining the Climate Pod.
Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be with you. Bye-bye.